All right, y'all. This is episode. It don't even matter what episode it is. We're back. I'm your homegirl, Ronnika, and this is.
Oh, it's my turn.
Yeah.
And this is Jeffrey Booker.
And welcome to the Please Do Tell podcast. Welcome back, y'all. So we want to just do kind of a quick check-in because I know we're a little behind with recording because your girl was a little sick. And if I sound a little nasally today, just bear with me.
How are
It's
you feeling?
I'm feeling a lot better this
Okay.
time last week.
Okay.
It was a no-go. So I'm just glad to be back on the mic, glad to be here with you, glad to share
Absolutely.
stories. We have a lot to unpack this evening. And of course, I'm looking forward to also the after show. But we want to, of course, talk about a little bit about the last episode that we did. We're saying we're just getting better and better with each episode.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The throwback moments, some of them they're so nostalgic, just, storytelling as a whole.
Mhm.
You get an opportunity to highlight so many things from your past, how others have influenced you, how a random moment in your life, which many of our people or many of our listeners may not even know, or how a moment just can happen. So
Mhm.
I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it's pretty cool.
And if you have not yet, be sure that whenever we try to do them on Thursday evenings, we go live on Facebook. And a lot of the topics don't even get touched in the episode, so we talk about them in the after show. And that
Absolutely.
and it gets wild and live. And we were talking about some things from Dear Forest to the House of David. It was the theme song for the Dear Forest.
Dear Forrest, yeah, 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 yeah,
I was
yeah.
like,
Only
what?
look, you had to be there to even imagine. So yeah, it was crazy, crazy time, crazy
Yeah,
time.
so be sure to just join us for our after show. It happens on Thursday evenings, Facebook Live. Maybe we'll just eventually go on YouTube Live as well. But right now we're on Facebook Live and we've been having a hoot and a holler of a time.
After nine, after
After
nine.
nine, we
We're
know,
just gonna say after
right?
nine,
We
after
know.
nine. Safe space, safe space. After nine.
We know that our people show up after 9. I think we tried 8 o'clock, and I think we started seeing people come in at 8:55. And we're like, "Ooh, maybe we need to." So we had to restart it from Jeffrey's page, but we had a good time.
Absolutely,
Good time.
absolutely. Well, we just kind of like listening to the viewers. We
Mhm.
want to make sure that we create this a space. It's a space for us to share our storytelling, but also for us to for all of us to share our opportunity and our story. Because you'll be surprised how connected this community really is.
Ooh, this community and the ones that we've been a part of over the years, like we continue to make just more and more meaningful connections. So.
Absolutely,
Let's get
absolutely.
into the episode. So, this story time is going to be titled, Let Me Tell You About My Grandma or My Granddaddy. I don't know which one to focus on. I mean, both of them. Well, as my brother would always say, we're from the blended of all blended families. So I've had some amazing elders in my life that are both connected through blood and through love. Um, but my sister and I can joke that my our grandparents' house on Main Street can be its own series. And I
What they
think
say, like, what was it? Since you mentioned the grandparents, what, like Knox Landing? The bold and the beautiful.
I
Yeah,
mean,
you know.
as the world turns,
Oh boy. Oh boy.
a little bit of gun smoke in there.
Oh wow.
Just all of that. I even heard that today as I was leaving a funeral. Gentleman had asked someone, actually, as they say, he's a Ben Harbor legend, L.C. Bowens, which was a part of the first championship team out of Ben Harbor High School. And he talked about, he asked where somebody was at, and they said, oh, he probably at home watching Gunsmoke. He said, if I wasn't at this funeral, that's where I'd be doing. I said, How old?
Still watching Gunsmoke. That's
Still
funny.
what?
Still watching Gunsmoke like it's new episodes. But look, it's nostalgic. It's I
Yeah.
guess Gunsmoke is like my Martin.
Oh, yeah. Or my insecure, my girlfriend's my different world. Yes, like it's you never get tired of it.
I guess
Ever.
so. I
Ever.
guess so. It's an era for
Yeah. Yes. So speaking of that, like that was just something that I did have to sit through at my grandparents' house was Gunsmoke, Matlock, Murder
Oh,
She.
I remember Matlock. I remember Matlock. Yeah. That's when you lay on the floor. You know, now you don't have to, but that's when you lay on the floor in front of the big model TV and fall asleep. As
Yes.
your grandma say, if you don't shut up, I'm gonna give you something to fall asleep for. You know, one of those. So I didn't like Matlock till I got a little older.
I don't think I ever liked it. I didn't like any of those because they were taken away from the shows that I really wanted to watch in the evening. So that's how I think I sharpened my skills up. For some people, they call it the dozens. We call it scoring. And we were doing a whole lot of that, my cousins and I today. And I said, man, that house at 1070 East Main is where I learned how to score. And I'm so forever grateful for that. But I joke about a lot of times that one of my first jobs was reading the obituary to my granddad every night. But that just wasn't just one of my jobs. Another one of my jobs was my granddad, my grandparents rented out rooms upstairs. It was a 10-bedroom house, three bedrooms downstairs, seven upstairs. And they rented out to community people. And I did not know one particular story is that I would always, my job was to run, my grandmother would cook meals. She was responsible for, especially dinner. I'm not sure if it was lunch and dinner, but I know she was responsible for cooking dinner for the tenants. So my job was to run the food upstairs, and then once they're done with their trays, bring it back. Almost like a hotel, or if you will.
Well, hostess. I
Oh,
mean,
a
I can
hostel. Yeah,
hostess,
yeah, yeah. That was all of
a
that.
waitress. You know,
All of that.
I didn't want to interrupt your story, but I was
Yeah.
like, I was thinking of the different skill sets there. As in, your grandfather had you read obituaries, but realistically, that was to improve your skill set and
Absolutely.
for him to still stay with current affairs locally. And then not only, that was later on in life, but um, they gave housing in
Hmm.
the community because realistically, that's a co-op.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? It's
Yeah.
realistically a co-op. You pay X amount for this room.
Hmm.
We're taking care of, the taxes, things of that nature, and they're providing meals. So
Hmm.
it's even better than a co-op. It was like really uh, um, before it became more industrialized, where it was like a local halfway house.
Hmm.
And like halfway, like, because we think of halfway house in a negative context. And so that's why I use co-op because co-occupancy, ooh, hard word. Uh, but it gives people an opportunity to get on their feet.
Hmm.
And I've seen it, in different, places of traveling. So that's, the little sidebar, that's a lot. Like they would teach you how to read and write, how to be in the service industry if you wanted to,
Hmm.
and also there, creating an opportunity to get people on their feet within the community. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. And my sister was responsible for balancing his checkbook. So
See,
everyone
everybody
here
has a
had a job.
skill,
Yeah.
but you have, those are the things that you miss. Like
Hmm.
you would hear of those stories as in a person would read the newspaper or like you said, read the obituary, to the elders because realistically, maybe they couldn't read or write. You
Hmm.
understand? But they could, in their faster days, they could kind of catch on and go along. But as you get older, a lot of people kind of phase you out. But that's what the young people are for. So you teach those skill sets, that you learn, and then they, with an educational system, have the ability, to enhance it.
Absolutely. Oh, I just love how you put all that together. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, because I'm looking at it from an outsider perspective because, similar experience. However, I didn't play that role, but now as being someone that actually work with young people,
Mm-hmm.
you'd be surprised that, certain skill sets, and then they'll come back 10 years later and be like, hey, remember what you did, such
Yes.
and such? Well,
Yeah.
I do this now, you know what I mean? So yeah, that's amazing.
Well, thank you. Shout out to John and Mary over there on 1070 East Main.
Hey, hey.
Two of the tenants that I remember for sure was Mr. Pee Wee, and for the life of my sister and I were like, what was his real name? But Mr. Pee Wee was blind.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he was blind, so he was one of
How
the
old?
he was older even back then, so he was probably in his 60s or 70s. But he can do like he could get himself dressed and maybe cook a few things like stuff out of the can and stuff like that. But other than that, my granny always made sure that he ate. But the other tenant was Joe Willie. And when I got older, I realized that Joe Willie was your classmate's grandfather, Shay Kelly.
Oh wow.
And
Wow.
Valencia. Yeah, yeah, that it was their
Wow.
granddad. And Joe Willie was we found out that he was also staying there because he was my granddad's bodyguard. From my granddad being the justice of the peace and locking folks up, he needed some protection. So
You
Joe
call
Willie,
that security?
that was a security.
Yeah, yeah.
So he made sure he had a place to stay, and my granddad always had his protection right there in the house. But Joe Willie had this because he was a smoker. He had this cough that would scare the mess out of us, but just such a nice guy. But we were just saying the different personalities and people that came through 1070. My granddad just did not meet a stranger, and I believe that's how my dad is. And for some people, they say I can be kind of the same way, even though sometimes I'm like, I'm more introverted, but because I really don't, I
Not
don't.
that round you just gave.
Like,
I'm more like round. All right.
but there's one story I do want to share about my granddad because I even thought about it today that I am the youngest granddaughter on that side of the family. And I wouldn't say the favorite, definitely not the favorite, but definitely the youngest. And we had this store that was a couple doors down called Seven Sisters, which was owned by the Napier family, which is kind of related to my family as well. We have a few cousins that are Napiers. And my granddad would always give me money to go spend at the store, but that's
But that
another, huh?
um we went to school with um one of the sister's kids that owned that store. I think
Oh, Crystal.
uh Ebony.
Ebony and
Ebony,
Crystal.
yeah,
Yeah.
Ebony and
Yeah.
Crystal. Yeah.
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 Actually, elementary, all of that. We went
Yeah,
to,
those elementary days. Shout
yeah.
out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shout
Um,
out to the Evans.
Shout out to them. So my cousins, my guy cousins, Kevin and Curtis in particular, they would, they knew that granddad would always give me money and they wanted to go to the movies one night. Or as my granddad would say, the show. They wanted to go to the
Yeah.
And so we're standing on the porch and my cousins were like, "Hey, Nika, can you go ask granddad for money to go to the show?" I said, "Am I going with you?" They were like, "Yeah, if you can get the money." I knew I wasn't going, but I just wanted to see. I'm just like, they probably going to see something that's probably PG-13 rated R. Here I am, 6, 7 years old. I know I'm not going.
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
And I said, "Well, why can't you ask him?" Like, what happened when you asked him? When you asked him? They said, "Man, let me tell you what he said." He gave us each, and he said, "Man, back in my day when we went to go see the show, you take a young girl that you like, maybe not, maybe you go with your friends, and you
Not
go down."
maybe, maybe not.
He said you go down to the show, and the show was you got to see it for a nickel, and the popcorn was free. And he said, "Do you know?" Do you know he gave us a nickel a piece? Talking about that's how much I can contribute to y'all going to the show. That's why we need you to go in there and ask him for the money. I said, well, unless I'm going to the show too, I ain't asking him nothing because this money gonna stay right in my pocket to go to Seven Sisters.
Mm-mm, mm-mm. Just get some junk food.
Mm-hmm.
Just a kid.
But I wasn't going to the show, so
I don't blame him. I don't blame
yeah. But my granddad was always providing those lessons, those stories, but I think that was one of the ones that even to this day my cousins and I can laugh about it because they never got that money to go to the show. He said, "You only work. That's the only way I give men any money is if they work."
sounds legit to me. Look, as I remember old saying, a man that do not work shall not eat. I remember hearing that, like thinking to myself, like, boy, I'm a growing boy. I damn sure like to eat. So I'm gonna have to get out here. I may have to bust a sweat out here and work. You know what I mean? I may have to really like this work thing. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, mm-mm, mm-mm.
So yeah, that's just one.
But when you talk about some wisdom, a person that comes to mind for me if we're, sticking in the community, uh, I would say would be Mr. Charles Brock. Mr. Charles Brock, he actually was my golf coach when I was in ninth grade, 10th grade, all the way to 12th grade. Mr. Brock was my golf coach. But Mr. Brock taught me a life lesson when I was in ninth grade. So, you make that transition from middle school to high school, and you're pretty athletic. I was pretty athletic. And so before you played a sport in a season, you know, that was it. But when you get in high school, you have multiple sports that you actually may have played. And you say, hey, I want to do this, do that. Well, I'm a TMB member. Shout out Tiger Marching Band.
Tiger Marching Band.
TMB member, so I was in band, but I also played golf, which he was my golf coach, and I also played soccer during the fall season, because I was the goalie. And I remember Mr. Brock told me when I was in 10th grade, my 10th grade year, he told me, he said, and this is words of wisdom. He said, I admire your ambition, and I know that you want to keep busy. He said, but you'll never be good at any of them. And, growing up in a single parent household, I grew up in a single parent household with my mother, but actually my grandmother actually raised me. So I was raised around all women. And
Hmm.
so all of a sudden you hear this young man that's active, that's not in the streets. He hears from another older man that, hey, you're never going to be good at anything if you're basically you're spreading yourself thin. It was a reality check. It was one of those ones where I remember hearing the elders, as in my mom and grandmother, and them saying, "Hey, well, he don't, how do he know? Blah blah blah, But they were there to defend, when
Hmm.
realistically he was there to give me the wisdom, as in, hey, you can do all of those things, but you'll never be great at them if you don't choose one and be great at it." And I didn't understand that. It took me years, even I would even say even after high school, to kind of understand that. What I did learn after high school is I didn't play golf professionally. I didn't play soccer professionally. I wasn't in band. You know what I'm saying? Like, I do know that. So long story short, I mean, he was right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but the things that I did start to want to master, whether it was dealing with community affairs or whether it was with young people or going to college and finishing,
Hmm.
those are the things that I drilled down in. And I heard that advice along the way. And I still hear it when I hear myself or feel that I'm stretched thin, because a lot of times people will make you feel bad or make you feel a certain type of way because they want and they know that you're able to accomplish that task, but maybe you don't have the bandwidth or maybe you don't have the capacity at that moment or at that period of time to finish that task. But
Hmm.
you got to be able to have that, knowledge, that pre-knowledge, that wisdom that's given to you. Say, hey, uh, uh, a fast no actually is going to be a better you
Mm,
in
mm,
the end, you
mm.
know. So that's what I would say, Mr. Brock. Yeah, hands down, Mr. Charles Brock. Shout out to him. His granddaughter, Miss Tamiko Brock, if she will be listening. I remember meeting her the first time in band. So yeah, that's a great family, the Brocks.
Is he still around, or do you know how to get in contact with him?
Actually, if I'm not mistaken, and I don't, I think Mr. Brock passed away. A number of years ago. I want to say even when I was living back in Michigan,
Okay.
Mr. Brock passed away. But I mean, because Mr. Brock had already retired and then was just coming back being the golf coach because he wanted to give back to the community in some form or fashion.
Mm-hmm.
So even now, as someone that's, progressing, 25 years from now, I may say, hey, I want to, give back. Or even like I remember like first graduating from college and coming back into the community and running a baseball league, that was Mr. Brock and others, that were around that had instilled that wisdom. And like you said, and with tonight's topic, with the cultural, that cultural strengthening, you
Mm.
know. So
Ooh. That was a perfect segue into our next section, which is culture keeper corner. Is you share about this wisdom from Mr. Brock, but we can. I know we can go on and on about even the wisdom that we were exposed to in the church. And so I wanted to just kind of focus on like what was some of the wisdom or traditions or lessons passed down from an elder that just really outside of Mr. Brock, because that I mean that's amazing. Just you'll never be good at it at any of them because it's so true.
you'll never be great.
Great at
You'll
any of
never be great at any of them because you're spending too much of your time in between. And I want to drill down so people can understand that for the understanding. He said, "Hey, I understand that He said you're gonna play golf. You're gonna play base. I mean, you're gonna play golf. You're gonna play soccer. You're gonna play band." He said on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. He said on Monday you're gonna go to school. After you get out of school, what you gonna do? I said, well, I had the light voice at the time. We trying to
them.
explain.
Uh-huh.
I will
Mm,
be able to go to band practice. Okay, he said, so you're gonna go to band practice till 4:30. And then after band practice, what you gonna do? I said, well, after band practice, I'm gonna go to soccer practice. So after soccer practice, you're gonna go from 4:30 to 6. All right. So then after uh there, what you gonna do? Then I'm gonna catch a ride and go to the golf course. He said, well, it gets dark by 7:15, because we're in the fall. So it's gonna get dark. So you're gonna go out there and you think you're gonna put an hour into that, and then you're gonna go home and do what? He said, you gonna do some homework? Yeah, what about eating? Just he threw all of that in there and as a kid, even as a 14, 15-year-old, it started to make sense.
mm-hmm.
Now, ask me, did I continue to do them?
Did
Mr.
you?
Brock was not happy. Mr. Brock was not happy, but I, again, never got great at it. Never got great at it.
um.
But
So,
you,
oh, go
no,
ahead.
nope, you good.
One of the culture keeper corner, some wisdom that was passed down to me was, hmm, one of the things that still stands out for me, and it was instilled in me, and I know it went from my granddad to my dad to myself, is that, be careful who you throw your keys to. And I used to just, my dad was a man of very few words, but when he spoke, you listened. But be careful who you throw your keys to. I was like, what does that mean exactly? He said, I'll tell you what it means. He said, I bought your car. I see that your friends are starting to have their own car. He said, and then you all think it's funny or cool to, oh, I'm gonna let my friend drive my car. He said, the car that I bought for you.
Right, 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 right,
He
right.
said, but can said friend, if they get into an accident, if something happened to that car, can they replace what they broke? He said, so that doesn't also only go for your car. That goes for anything that's very valuable to you. That could be your body. That could be your car. That could be just the keys to your home.
Mm.
Value. It just be careful who you throw your keys to. Because he said, if I ever find anybody in your car and you're not in there, or even you're in there, you're on the passenger side, and I know they can't replace it, I'm going to repo it myself because I always carry around a copy
Right,
of
right,
the key
right, right,
with me
right,
on my key ring.
right, right.
And I find myself even now is that also helped me to even when it comes to friendships. The people that are in my life, do I trust them if I get into a situation where, we were reckless and younger at once upon a time. If you have one too many drinks, do I feel comfortable giving this person the keys to my car to make sure that I get home safely? And even now, it's if I don't feel well or if something happens, do I feel comfortable letting this person drive my car? And I can even go back to even band camp is when I think I was like one of the first ones with the car. And he said, "You're gonna be the first one with a car, and everybody gonna want to hop in the car with you. But
Of course.
you're gonna have to be very selective when you making that Burger King run of who you letting in that car."
I remember that. Oh, Ronnika, you was like one of the first people with the car. I remember that. You know, Ronnika drives. Throw that out there. You know, Ronnika drives.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. So to this day, I'm super selective of who I give my keys to. Yeah, I learned that lesson when I first moved to North Carolina and threw the keys to the wrong person. And I remember this long lecture from my dad, and he said, "Well, who'd you give your keys to?" And I said, "Ooh, okay, all right,
Welcome back.
okay, thank you, thank you." So that's one of the things that was some wisdom that really stuck with me, and it continues to stick with me to this day. And I even tell kids that too. When we were working with teenagers, is that's your car, so I know you didn't pay for said car. Even if you pay for said car, can your friend that you just gave these keys to, once they wreck it, they gonna keep walking right on down that street, and you over here with a beat up car that
And
ain't.
if you feel like they can do it, they would have had their own car in the first place.
Hello,
Don't forget
hello,
that part. Don't forget
hello.
that.
That was the main
They'd
thing.
have threw you the keys of their car.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I became kind of like a little control freak about like even when I went out with friends, because of that. Well, one, my mama, I ain't finna lose the car just trying to let you drive the car.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know I don't even know your middle name. Nah, 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 look, cuz I
Yeah.
can't.
It's a no for me, dog.
It's a no for me. But first thing when you mentioned about church, you mentioned about church traditions. One of the things that popped into my head with church traditions is, you know, if they put that finger up,
Ah.
for you to come on out, come on.
Mm-hmm.
That's a church tradition, and it was crazy because as I got to a certain age, my grandmother was like, "You're gonna, we in church." That's it. Like you can go to school, but church is mandatory. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Uh, uh, so it was one of those things like, so I transitioned as in I'm going to church with my grandma. I'm sitting like right behind her, and then after sitting right behind her to, oh, you're gonna be a junior deacon. So now I'm sitting right in front of her because she on the mother's board. So my seat never changed. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just like when people I used to, now this is funny. I used to envy my friends that I went to school with, like all the way up, whether from church. So I started going to church maybe like second, third grade, all the way up to high school. My friends, they sitting all over the church. Now don't get me wrong, as in, Oh, they people putting them in check.
Oh
You
yeah.
know what I mean? Like, don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, because I know my
Yeah.
people, they'll call me out on this, you
Mhm.
know. But they're sitting throughout the church. Mm-mm. As long as I've been going to church, I sat right behind the mother's board, and the mother's board was on the second pew, and I would sat on the third, and then it was a junior deacon slash deacon, and then I sat on the first bench, you know. So I don't know. So to go into church,
My
I
God.
sit in the front. I don't know no other seat to sit in
Hmm.
because they told me that the heathens was back there. So yeah, I don't know. So I don't go back there, you know. What I will say is, it's actually a little sidebar. I did sit in like the balcony of the church, but that was when churches was transitioning. You know, when we were little, you know, not trying to show it, throw
Right. Yeah.
any years,
Yeah.
you know, but in the 80s and 90s, the mics at black churches just didn't work right.
Mm-mm.
Somebody just didn't know how to use the mics.
No.
They did not. They be
Yeah, yeah,
it was
yeah.
always it
Are
was
you swallowing?
terrible,
Okay, all right.
terrible mics. So, you know, church came up through the building fund, and next thing you know, we had a sound system, you know. Well, I just so happened to be 15, 16 years old. Oh, you know, he's going on college tours. I got a pre-college track, you know what I'm saying? So for 2 years, or yeah, 2 years, because my grandma was on my ass when I was up there. But you know, for 2 years, I basically did the sound equipment before I went on to college. But outside of that, I was in the front. Actually, I would start as a deacon, and then after devotion, I went right up there. But I was always in front of that church.
It's like you got the promotion. First you were on lettuce, then you're on fries, and then next thing you know, you were assistant manager.
Come on now, come
And
on
that's when the
now.
big bucks start.
Now that's where the big bucks is at.
In the sound booth.
Yeah, yeah. I was in the sound, and next thing you know, it's like, hey, you know, it's time for me to go off to college.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah,
Then you coming back and you visiting like, I'm the big kid in town, so
yeah,
I'm an
yeah,
adult.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Treat me accordingly, but not really, because they like you still little.
Mm-mm. First of all, anybody that's 20 years older than you ain't trying to hear treat you like no adult.
No.
Like that is old. That's over.
Mm-hmm.
So if you come back with that mentality, then they're gonna treat you another new tradition. They don't respect it. They
At
don't respect it. Look, they done been an adult 40 of your 1 years.
mm-hmm.
So they ain't worried about that, you
Yeah.
know. So it's a part of it. Mm-mm.
So I want to talk about we talk about listener spotlight, and and I'm thinking about some of our friends, and then even our Facebook lives. We've been engaging with some cool people, and
That's right. Don't forget 9 after 9 o'clock Thursday
after
night.
nine,
After
after
9 o'clock
nine
Thursday
Thursday
night.
nights.
Yeah.
I thought it
Go
was
live on Facebook.
live. Like when I say live, like all the way live. Like
Be there.
bring your beverage. We have a good time. But
Throwback moments.
you highlighted, and I want you to just share a little bit about this, if you will. And I saw Robert, which is your cousin, which I affectionately call Robert. You all gave a shout out to Kimora and what she did for your grandmother. And I feel like that really needs, I wanted to know more about that night, but I know the drinks were flowing and we were just kind of like, hanging out in the comments at that point in time. But just if you can just think of like one time in particular that you can share that Kimora was like, no, Kimora was right there. Then over time, we're gonna just invite more listeners to do it. Um, So yeah, I want you to talk about because we had Kamora was the one that was in the comments that gave me the real words to the theme song for Dear Forest. So clearly
Oh
she
yeah, come on, come on, come on.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah, I mean, the crazy part about it is you just never know. And it's a village, as in, no matter, I've had an opportunity to live throughout this country. However, just looking at the context from a local standpoint, you don't know your touch points, people that you go to school with, things of that nature. I grew up in River Terrace, also known as the Terror Dome. But um,
like,
just so happened I lived with my grandmother growing up, but just in the natural attrition, my grandmother went from being a grandma to a great grandma, but then she just naturally, got older. And so my grandmother suffered from dementia, until, dementia and Alzheimer's into her death. And but she still lived in, public housing, as in where the young folks in our community, where
mm-hmm.
I'm from, where the young folks stay. And so it went from when I was little, there were um um middle class families that were around in this housing, to now it was the next generation. So a lot of their kids and things were living, younger people were living in this environment. So I think my grandmother was like the oldest person that lived like in this cul-de-sac,
Yeah.
So all of a sudden it went from quietness to on everybody's going to church on Sunday afternoon, people coming out taking pictures on Sunday, to Saturday night was the hypest night, And now you couldn't get, as my grandma would say, I can't get rest on a Saturday night for church on Sunday. But just so happened, she got a neighbor when I went off to college. I went off to college on 102. She got a neighbor on 304, which was Kamora. And Kamora, someone that I knew and growing up as a kid, but we didn't know each other. But Kamora took in, and I don't want to say, I would say t took in my grandmother, as in from the standpoint of I'm going to check in on her on a daily basis to make sure she's okay. Then of course, older people, they're gonna, hey, you need this, but she also had an opportunity to teach, Kimura different skill sets, which I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
I had no clue. I would see, because we're in that age frame of, I'm 21, 22. My grandmother's in her 60s, 70s, near 80 years old. That's not that important, because we're living our life during that period of time. But I never knew that building that type of relationship, or just our family, from Robert and myself, that's his classmate. That's y'all classmate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Building that rapport, that she looked out because she didn't have to. And then here it is, my grandmother passed away in 2012.
12.
Yeah, 2012. My grandmother passed away in 2012, and here it was. We went live, a couple weeks ago, and she was talking about. So it just lets you know that impact, and that was 13 years ago. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? My grandmother passed away. Um, um, the My grandmother passed away a couple days from now,
Mhm.
13 years ago. Actually, I just had to look down
Yeah,
on it.
like I thought it was May. Yeah.
Yeah, it was right before the week before Mother's Day. So, but yep,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And I love talking about that, just how that village just continues to, if we accept it. Because I'm like, the village is there.
Right.
It's
Correct. Because in a part of the village comes correction.
mm-hmm.
A lot of times we don't want to be corrected, and
Yeah.
so we kind of shut people down. When realistically, that correction may be for the protection. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I'm not trying to rhyme or anything. But realistically, sometimes people say, watch out. You be like, well, you don't have to tell me. One of the things, I'll give an example, and I'll let you move on. But an example is living here in New York.
Mm-hmm.
I've held doors open for people, and they're like, "You don't have to hold the door open for me,
Yeah.
really,
Yeah. Yeah.
really. You want to use all that energy to disrupt my day because I was just giving a kind gesture."
Yeah.
But like you said, if people are willing to receive it,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we just invite more of you, especially when we're on the live, to share those stories because they may come up in an episode and we may even find a deeper connection, not only between just Jeffrey and I, but other viewers as well. So just continue to share those stories. The next segment is Foolishness Files. So I think I recently told a story like this at work. About maybe a month ago, I actually called my sister to verify. What's the most hilarious or wild thing your grandma, daddy, grand auntie said or did? Or you can reflect on the blend of wisdom and wit that came from the older generation.
Um, I'm gonna keep it simple for this. We'll talk about it a little bit on the after show.
Okay.
But the some random wisdom. Um, Random wisdom that was given to me, I would use would be from my mother.
Mm.
Check your surroundings.
Mm.
Keep it simple. Check your surroundings.
Hmm.
Just check your surroundings. Now, whenever you feel, just check your surroundings. Whenever
Yeah.
you feel, just check your surroundings.
Yeah.
And then you just kind of, just awareness.
Yep.
Even if you're by yourself, check your surroundings. As in, it doesn't mean that somebody's around you, but maybe you need to come in more peace with oneself,
Hmm.
so check your surroundings.
That's good. Um, so I'm gonna go from the foolishness file. The wild thing is, my granddad used to weigh us.
We used to weigh like
Yeah.
everybody,
Everybody. He would keep a tally of your weight if it was going up or down.
grandchildren.
Grandchildren, and the children weren't having that no more. The children,
So
yeah,
it was a thing. He had been doing it with everybody.
he had been doing it. Yeah, the children were like, all the guys were pretty. They kept slender weight, except for maybe one. The one that was kind of out there, and Um, but other than that, it was just the girls that just we yo-yoed. But I thought it was fun and funny. My cousins did not think so.
I bet.
Especially for the girls that were teenagers that, the hormones are changing, all that. They're like, why is granddad weighing us? Why is he telling us that we're fat? So whenever we tell people that, they're alarmed. They're like, oh my God, I'd be mortified. We can laugh about it now. We were mortified back then, but we can just kind of laugh about it now and how we're just really conscious of our weight. Like I know when I what was it year before last when I had got on that scale and I was 200 pounds. I said, "Oh my God, my granddad would talk so much stuff about me being this height and 200 pounds." But for him, he was thinking like you're unhealthy.
Hmm.
Whereas for me, I'm just like, no, he's telling me that I'm fat. But for him, it's like no. If the bigger you are, the more unhealthy you are. Which we know that that's in a lot of cases that's not true. But yeah, that's still to this day. Whenever my sister and I tell that story, people think it's wild, but we're just like that was our life growing up.
Mm. Yeah, and that could be impactful. Look at it years later, and then how it's interpreted. And
Hmm.
realistically, he was kind of given the medicine.
Yeah.
He was kind of giving the castor oil. Hey, you need to slow it down there, young girl. You need to slow it down there,
Yeah.
young sir. You need
Yeah.
to do push-ups over here. You know what I mean? Like that's basically what he was saying. Was
Yeah.
he question? Was he in the military?
No.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
What was his
Politics.
stature? What was his demographics?
He was no taller than 5'8".
Weight?
He was pretty. He was solid. Maybe, because it's so hard for me to gauge how men's weight. So maybe 150, 160. Yeah. I don't remember a stomach ever.
Uh,
Yeah.
so he was on everybody though.
Yeah. Everybody's head. Every.
uh, 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 uh. But one of the things, so now that you talk about that, as we go into traditions being passed down, is that something that you if you had children, would that be something that you would do? Or how would, because if you had children, would that be something that you would do or not? And if you would or would not, then what would you do? And
Mm,
the reason why I asked you is because you mentioned that he was just talking about being healthy. He may not articulate it or went through the process, but how, if, I asked a bunch of questions right there.
yeah.
But as you know, would that be a tradition that you would pass down? Why not? And then why or why not? What would you do?
So it passed down to my dad, who was military,
Okay.
and the cure for him is his line was, "There's always something to do." So you're always active. You're always coming and going. He had his little notebook, his little pocket notebook. It was always a task in there. He said, if you're constantly moving, you're constantly burning calories. And I find myself even now, even with my Fitbit, when it goes off at that 10-minute mark before the top of the hour, if I haven't made my step goal, I'm moving. I'm moving my arms, I'm moving something.
Right.
And I think I interpret it as if, if that time comes to have children, that I want my kids to be as active as they can be, because I'm also looking at a lot of things in our family history where there is heart disease, there is there is diabetes on one side. I want to be able to have a child that is just active but also having fun while being active, and I think that that's something that my parents really instilled in us. It wasn't just really um yeah, just as my granddad said, I need you to go check your weight. It was more intentional of how we were being active.
And
So,
having that intent.
yeah, the intent.
Speaking of that, I know this is random, but I was I learned this past week that to be active, well, I don't want to say to be active. What I learned this past week is once you eat, you're supposed to walk for at least 10 minutes after every meal.
And I did that since you told me. I did that today. I was like, oh yeah, okay, yep.
In comparison of the group, because it's a study.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm gonna share it with our viewers.
Okay, yeah.
So the study shows that for people that walk 30 minutes in the morning versus people that walk for 10 minutes after each meal, that their AC1 level drops. As in group A that walks 30 minutes in the morning, it dropped by 15%. And for group B who walks 10 minutes, for 10 minutes after each meal, it dropped by 30%.
Mm,
We'll be able to cite it because it's a Wall Street Journal. Excuse me, a New York Times article. That's where I got that information from. Like it was, I YouTubed it, then I had to go to, and it was a New York Times article
mm.
where I got it from. Yeah,
Well, I know.
that's information. That's shocking because even later on in life, I won't forget that one.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Well, you see, I was already implementing it today. I was like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to. Yeah. Okay.
That's crazy. I never thought about it. But, using myself as an example, I lost 40 pounds in transitioning from living in Michigan to living in New York. I
Mm,
lost 40 pounds in like a year. But it was just because I don't drive. Well, I
yeah.
didn't drive. I didn't drive for the first few years that I was out here. So it's a little, you was always, it was like your father said, there was always something to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, whether it was groceries, going to the grocery store and things of that nature. So yeah. Yep.
Mm. Love that. So we're gonna quick go into our rapid fire round. It's old school versus new school. So really quickly, what's your favorite old school snack?
Old school snack, Twizzlers.
Hmm.
What's yours?
I have one that I cannot find. It is the Cherry cola annihilators. On one side it was cherry, on the other side it was cola. I'll probably never have it
I'm
again.
writing them down, because I know you for birthday, so that's a little side.
If you could ever find it, if annihilators, hello annihilators, if you're listening, please bring back the cherry cola annihilators. Thank you. All right. All right. Song your elders used to blast in the house. Go.
I grew up with my grandmother, so it was probably Mahalia Jackson, something. At minimum, Mahalia, because my grandma didn't do really that much secular music, so I would say, but she did always talk about Sam Cooke.
Mm,
Oh, Sam
the
Cooke.
change gonna come. Hmm.
Yeah.
Mine was my dad listened to a lot of Motown, but there's just one season in particular my mom would pull out that Nat King Cole Christmas.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Never failed.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go back and listen to that because I don't remember hearing that.
Oh man, it was a tape. Two
Chestnuts roasting.
on an open fire. I knew it was time to open gifts when I heard Nat. I knew it. I
Huh.
knew it.
I didn't even know who Jack Frost was nipping at a nose.
At you know. Yes. Okay. A fashion statement that deserves a comeback.
Well, we didn't got a little up there. I was gonna say windbreakers, but they're back.
They are back.
Yeah, I like windbreakers. I had Swissy suits for days. Slash, I'll give my second favorite would be overalls.
Mm.
Minus no heel figures.
Okay. I don't even have to answer that one. But one thing your elder said that you now catch yourself repeating. Mine is gonna probably forever be Miles's maintenance.
I love Miles's maintenance because I use that in my real life. When your father said that, I was, yeah, Miles's maintenance. That's no lie. Yeah, that's no lie. A saying. Say the question again.
One thing your elder said that you now catch yourself repeating.
It's so many.
I know it's
It is
so
so
many.
many. Who am I gonna give a shout out to? Uh, man, a saying.
A coach.
Woo.
Um,
Okay. Oh, shout out to Coach Harvey.
I knew you were gonna go there. I was like, watch this for me, a Coach Harvey one. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Look, it hit me too. I
Yeah,
look, we gotta
let's
go back and
go.
I gotta go back and watch the
I was like,
watch the recording. My
say,
face lit up.
say, Coach Harvey, let's go.
Shout out to Coach Harvey. Rest in peace to Coach Harvey, to
Mhm.
him, his wife. Both of them. To the Harvey family and Gunjazat. Because those are his grandkids.
Yeah.
But Coach Harvey, I remember in ninth grade. He gave me this one line. He said, "Hey, him over there. He he's skating on ice and the sun's shining." And as as a kid, you gotta let that marinate. So I'm gonna say it again. You skating on ice and the sun's shining. See, if you're not from the north, you may not get it. But if the sun is shining, that means it's heating up that ice. And you skating on it, that means you about to fall through. So that's one of the best quotes. You skating on ice and the sun shining. Absolutely. Thank you. Look, say that. Thank you.
Now that's how you end a segment. Okay, so we, oh my goodness. We, of course, want to invite our listeners to share their elder stories. And actually, if you want to share photos, we would love to feature you on the Please Do Tell podcast. We know that the next episode we want to talk about it in the after show. So, but you have to be sure to come back for our next episode. Listen, we have an abundance of stories. Clearly, we have connections with so many people. That's why we love sharing these stories with you all, and we love when you talk back to us. So be sure to follow us on social media. I am Ronnika.Williams on all social media. And Jeffrey, where can they find you?
I'm Jeffrey Booker, and you can find me at Mr. Fantastic World on Instagram.
And it is Thursday. So what day are we on our protest?
Today is dun, 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 day 60. Day 60. We do not mess with Target. Again, we are on our way to day 100. And actually, if you get an opportunity to go to the to my Instagram story, beginning tomorrow all the way up to day 100, you will have 40 people of color, specifically black people, and the reason for the 40 acre and a mule. When we talk about DEI, I know we talk about inclusion, but when it talks about black people, it's not just about inclusion. We're talking about community. We're talking about the American community. Whether
Hmm.
you're black, white, Mexican, Hispanic, Asian, it doesn't matter. We're talking about the American people. We're not talking about separation. We're talking about all of us together. So I do not support Target at all. I thank you for the little rant, but we are working on day 61 tomorrow. Today is day 60, and I thank you for all for supporting. If you want to know how you can continue to support, just DM me on at Mr. Fantastic World on Instagram.
I do want to give a short little tidbit. At my aunt's funeral today, I was talking to another one of my aunts, and she was like, "Ooh, Ronnika, I love." It's not this lip color I was wearing. She said, "Ooh, I love that lip color. What is it?" I was like, "Rich auntie." And she said, "Oh," I said, "No, that's the name. That's the name of the lip color." She said, "Oh, who's that by?" And I told her, and I said, "You can get it at Target." And she said, "Oh, no, 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 no. We ain't supporting Target."
Come on now.
I
Come
said,
on
"Oh,
now.
you being down."
We don't do that. We
She
don't do
said,
that.
"Oh no, her and I can't. We ain't supporting Target. We ain't supporting it." I
Look,
said, "Okay, girl." She said, "Until they get they together, we."
enough's enough.
Yeah. So yeah.
Stay low.
Well,
Enough's enough.
all right, y'all. So you can catch us on another episode of the Please Do Tell podcast. But as of right now, we finna slide over to the after show. So I'm your homegirl Ronika, and this is
Jeffrey.
all right, and we out. Hello.